This is how.
Oh, do we need to Is that a box fine?
I don't know why it made it bigger. Technical difficulties. It wouldn't be a show if we didn't.
Have a technical difficulty?
There we go. There we go.
We good. How is everyone?
I guess I'll get the business spiel out of the way. I know people on YouTube love when I do this
Have they made a comment? I haven't noticed.
portion. No, honestly, I think the last comment,
Sorry.
and you can start it whenever you want. I just didn't know when you wanted. The last comment, I made a deal with Krystle that I would upload and do everything for the YouTube channel, but I would not look at comments anymore because it's just amazing. Actually, it doesn't amaze me. It doesn't surprise me. People are awful on keyboards. The things that
I have fun with it.
The things that they have said about us, me and Krystle, about our spouses, just about our home. But I did see one not too long ago. I think somebody made it about a month ago because it's been a while. I was just checking our analytics, and somebody called me and Krystle beauties.
Oh yes,
So,
I saw that.
That was sweet.
That was sweet.
That was very sweet. And he actually did another comment where he was like agreeing with something that Krystle had previously said, in either a comment or something she said during the Twitch stream. I don't know. That Twitch stream was literally over a year ago, and we still get hate comments on it.
I know. I don't even listen to the hate comments anymore. I just listen to the good ones.
But we had some recent good ones. Surprisingly, one of our episodes we did like over a year ago about Derek Todd Lee, which is the Baton Rouge serial killer, has gotten a lot of views lately and a lot of comments. But yeah, that's awesome. That's what we've had going on lately in our life. We've had a lot of people emailing us in. I did not realize how many people still email, like outside of business, you know what I mean? Like just to chat, I guess. So like, like mainly people use email for like
specific communication.
Either for work or like, other stuff like that. But like we literally had people, I think we talked about our last Twitch stream, or we did on an episode. I can't remember. But her name is Dee Dee. She emailed us. That was pretty cool, just to tell us that she enjoyed one of our episodes. That was really
and gave us a little
cool.
bit of information.
Yeah, that was awesome. It's kind of refreshing to see, and I think that got me and Krystle talking about a conversation about how people don't write letters anymore. So it's kind of cool to get emails and stuff like that, and just see that people notice. We have people tagging us on Facebook, which Facebook is not. It's not really a thing anymore. I'm just gonna say it. Like, not as many people get on Facebook anymore, and we have people sending us like Facebook pages. We recently just sat down and recorded an episode, and it literally fell into our lap because somebody sent us a Facebook page that is for someone that went missing. So really cool to just say that our name is kind of getting out there and kind of just making the rounds. And I did notice, because we use Anchor, which is kind of a application, I guess, that people use for podcasts, and a lot of the analytics and stuff come from Spotify. And the majority of our listeners are like around me and Krystle's age, like either 25 to like 35. But I was just telling Krystle earlier, from like 16 to 21 has recently jumped up. So we have a lot of younger listeners, which is really cool. And then from the ages of 55 to 70 bumped up. And I was like, that's like my grandparents.
Yeah, my grandparents.
Yeah, so I was like, that's really cool.
Thanks, grandparents, for sharing the word.
Yeah, I don't know, it's just cool. Like, you don't have to like give podcasts to one general, I guess, age group anymore, because now ours, like, you look at our analytics and it's like all over the place now. Probably not under 16. Because I would feel a little uncomfy if some people that age listen to our stuff. But yeah, that was pretty cool. I'm gonna stop babbling and I'm gonna hand it over to Krystle. She has a really cool case that I have no idea. I just made the flyer for, and I'm here.
Okay, so I got all my technical stuff done. So if y'all were looking at me saying, why is this girl not paying attention to anything? I promise I was. I was just making sure that everyone knew we were live on different social media platforms. The end. Okay. Just because I know YouTube people like to say stuff. Anyway. So today's topic is one that I honestly have kind of like been enamored by for a long time. And I don't know why I waited this long to cover it. I didn't even put it on the list until probably like 6 months ago. But like, I don't know. I love it.
I'm honestly surprised I saw it on the list, so I purposely didn't research it, but I'm honestly surprised I've never heard of it.
Only reason I know about it is because I was the kid like in middle school and high school who watched the History Channel, so that's how I knew about
Fair
it.
enough.
Like I watched the History Channel.
And that was my least favorite subject.
That's
so.
all I watched. So in true Krystle form, you're gonna get a little bit of a history lesson today. So I know you didn't, but I hope other people enjoyed history class because. History lesson. It's not really a history lesson. You're not going to have to memorize dates. That was the first and best thing that I ever had a teacher tell me. If someone teaches a history class and your history test is nothing but dates, you did not learn history. You learned to memorize dates.
See, that was most of my classes.
So I never, like, I know dates, but, like, I never, like, memorized them because it wasn't important to me because it's just a day in history.
But I also had this it never failed. I had the stereotypical history teacher every year with some kind of sports coach
who really shouldn't have been teaching history.
I hate to be that way. Like, one of them, my freshman year, we learned stuff, but, like, sophomore, junior, senior, they were all coaches, and they literally should not have had any classroom.
I was gonna say something, but I'm just not. I'm gonna keep my little political mouth shut.
It was just like you said. It was literally just dates, and that was it.
It
bored me.
That's not history.
Because one, I'm really bad at names. Like, Krystle will like ramble off names. Like, you should know this person. I'm terrible with names. I need some kind of like landmark or some kind of descriptive, and I'm terrible with dates.
That's why it surprises me when people tell me that they had or hated history, because I love it so much, because the best way that I can equate it to people is, for me, it's like, I don't know if you do this. I recently found out that some people don't, but when you read a book, so you kind of create a whole scene and image in your head of like what the room looks like, what these people look like. When I read a book, it's very imaginative. It's like I'm creating a movie in my head. When I'm learning about history, that's the same thing for me. I basically I try to recreate the whole scene in my head. So when somebody's having this conversation or argument about a war or starting a war or, people's rights, like when I think about those conversations, I put it all in my head and try to imagine what it was like. So I think that's why I love it so much.
It has to be a specific topic, because a lot of it is just boring and people I don't care about, and a lot of them were really bad people, and I'm like, why are we learning
so much about the bad people?
We learn more about the bad people than we did about the good people,
or we learn more about the people who did things to the bad people,
and it's
the bad people who did to the good people, and we don't learn anything about the good people.
Bunch of dates and stuff, and I'm just like,
it doesn't make sense. But I don't like that kind of history, so hopefully this doesn't feel like this is that. So this is going to be a little unorthodox how I explain this to you as well. So no one really knows where the Voynich Manuscript originated or who even wrote it. So they don't know where it came from, and they don't know who wrote it.
I will say, when I was making the flyer for this, looking up the stuff for it was very interesting.
Okay. The first time in recorded history that it's mentioned was in the mid-17th century. An alchemist named Georg Bersch, give me all the credit for that, had a book in his possession for several years. He just kind of had it in his library, and he never knew what it meant. He called it a sphinx, because basically a sphinx is just like this wonder. And he was just using that word as like, I don't know, apparently that's a thing.
Interesting.
But it was his sphinx, and he had no idea what it was. He had no idea anything about it. He couldn't make heads or tail of it. When he looked inside of it, it looked like just a bunch of gibberish, basically. After several years of trying to understand what the book said, he reached out to a man named, here's another one, I shouldn't pronounce this, Anastasius? Oh, God, I practice this. Y'all.
Athanasius? Athanasius? I'm pretty sure.
Athanasius.
Athanasius?
I looked it up in practice. Athanasius. I'm so sorry if your name is Athanasius.
I can confidently say I've never met somebody with that
Neither
name.
have I. But if in 2022 your name is Athanasius, I am sorry I butchered your name, but I figured it out.
I do like it.
Yes, Athanasius Kircher. I think that's how you say his last name.
The first
or
name
Kircher.
The first name is so cool and long, and then it's just
Athanasius.
Kircher.
Athanasius is a cool name. Do not get me wrong, but I don't feel like I could confidently name my child Athanasius.
Like, I like Atticus.
Oh, I love Atticus.
I love Atticus. But yeah, I don't think I could name a child that, because it's...
Athanasius. What would you call him?
Athy.
Athy would be cute. Natius. I don't know. Anyone think too much about it. I'm sorry, Athanasius. Athanasius was a scholar who basically at the time claimed to have figured out and deciphered the hieroglyphs, like the Egyptian hieroglyphs. But this was something that really and truly would not be done until like in the 1820s when Napoleon's troops just find the Rosetta Stone.
It's another one that I hated learning about.
Napoleon?
God, that was a big chunk.
I don't know. I always feel like Napoleon is like supposed to be like this really bad guy. And like he was kind of a douchebag, but I don't know. I just wish I learned more about him. Like I like what I learned about him, but I felt like I also learned about him in like this weird way. Like I want to know more about him, not about all the things that he did, if that makes sense.
I just felt like he was compensating for stuff.
Well, did you know he's actually wasn't as short as people say he was?
I got that vibe.
Yeah, he was not very short. He was actually decently,
and he just felt like somebody that liked to fight.
Yeah, like, but I want to know like him. I know he was a douche, but I want to know about him. Anyway, that's just who I am. I always want to know about people. I'm nosy. Ask anyone. I'm the nosiest person you'll know. There are no records of communication between the two men at all, like between the two, but it did eventually make its way into the hands of Kircher after the death of Bersch. So in a letter, this is confusing, in a letter from a close friend of Bersch to Kircher, he details what little history of the book that he knew that was told to him by Bersch. He told him that a Dr. Raphael, who was a tutor for Ferdinand III, who was the king of Bohemia, told him that the book belonged to the Emperor Rudolph II, who bought the book believing that it was written by Roger Bacon, and he bought it for like so much money, and yeah. But you know, Emperor Rudolph II was like a collector of like kind of like occulty things, weird things, mystery items, that kind of stuff.
Sorry, you're saying all these unique names and then Roger Bacon.
Okay, I think he actually had like a Greek or Roman name or something. His name is like Roderium Bacon.
So they Americanized it.
Roger Bacon.
Colonized it.
Yes, it's Roger Bacon. And he was kind of like I guess you would loosely call him a scientist, I guess. He did a lot of work with like refracting and like light refraction and figuring out that stuff, and then figuring out like microscopes and magnifying glasses.
That's where it came from. Yeah.
So that's kind of what his deal was. So that's the story that the book went along with for like years and years and years. Okay. After the book was given to Kircher, no location for the book was known for about 200 years. So for about 200 years, it just went missing. Historians can only assume, though, how the book got from Kircher's library to the man whose name would be attached to the Voynich. But the accepted history, so like what they assume is the most likely route that it happened, was that Kircher's collection of books was stored at the Roman College in Rome, obviously, and it was founded by Saint Ignatius. Important to remember. When the Italian government kind of went crazy and they had their whole like little thing, the government confiscated all the books from the library, from the Roman College library. Okay, well, while they did before they did this, a lot of like professors and teachers were like, well, we're going to take the books home with us just in case they burn them or get rid of them. We want to be able to have them.
That has happened in history.
Yes, that happened. There's a very famous book that's on the banned list book that happens in. You know what I'm talking about? Fahrenheit, whatever.
I
love that book.
I don't understand the current ban list because literally every book that's on there I read in high school.
Yeah. They're just books probably by people who haven't read them and their parents told them that they needed to be banned again.
There's one that's banned for sexual assault, but that was the whole reason. Do you know which one I'm talking about? The Kite Runner.
Oh, yeah.
It was literally written about sexual assault in high school and how people survive from it.
Yeah, that's important things for high schoolers to know.
It just happened in a different country.
Yeah.
Well, it comes... Anyways, you'll have to read
it.
Read
the book if you have it.
It's really
and then
good.
the author has another one by it, too, and I have that one, and I can't remember the name of it. I have it at home, but I can't remember the name of it.
They banned in 1984. I don't understand that. Like, literally all the books that I loved is banned.
And a lot of the new, like, books, like the new YA books that deal with, like, gender issues or sexuality issues or sexual assault issues, I'm like, there's no difference between that and a book that we were reading 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago.
You can... I mean, kids are going to still read it.
Yeah.
They have public libraries. Like, public libraries are literally putting those books in the front now.
Yeah, they are, and I love it.
The bookstores, Barnes & Noble, shared that they literally have their front table with a sign that says current banned books.
And I've seen a lot of teachers buying every book that's on the current ban list and putting it in their library and making it like a no checkout policy. Like, they'd have to keep it at school. But they can go anywhere in the school and read it, but they have to keep the book at school so they don't take it home and their parents see it and them get in trouble.
I'll never forget freshman year. I was very excited. I was like, high school. Finally, I'm going to start reading some very like adult books. I'm ready. I love reading.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to get a permission slip signed to read In Cold Blood. And that's not even like... I mean, it is really... there's a lot of blood, murder and stuff, and it's like still a mystery kind of, but like...
That's weird.
And now I'm like, they're freaking banning 1984.
Like, that's like
there's not even
prime
really
time.
Anything bad in it. It just talks about the future.
Yeah, and how the government and the world could be. Like, I don't know. Anyway, same thing. The government wanted to take books away from people. So this is what they did. So the teachers were like, nope. We are, you know what I just realized? That little tangent we went on, we're going to get hate comments for it on YouTube.
It's fine. So, I mean, we have freedom of speech, but...
leave them below.
Once you put it in a book form, it's no longer freedom of speech.
Yeah, so, put it down. Put your comment down. So, basically, before the government could do that, all the professors were like, well, we're going to hold on to these because they're important. They realized the importance of the books. And the Voynich Manuscript was among one of these. The man who took the book from himself had a pretty extensive private library, and as he got older, he had it moved to a building that was owned by the Jesuits. And the reason that's kind of connected is because the Roman College that was founded by St. Ignatius also founded the Jesuits, which was like part of the Jesuits. Okay? So,
like communities.
They were all in the same kind of community. So in 1912, the Roman College sold some of these books because eventually they had made their like way back to him, like after the government kind of calmed down a little bit. They had made their way back to the Roman College. So some of these books had made it back, and they were going to sell some of them to the Vatican. Now, private buyers were also able to buy. And one of these was actually purchased by a man named Wilfrid Voynich. Now, admittedly, Voynich had a pretty interesting life. He was born in what is currently Lithuania, but then was part of Russia. So he became a pharmacist,
Okay.
like really young. Honestly, he was like 20, but was for his entire life was a bibliophile. Just loved books. When he was 20, he joined a failed revolution, which I'm just living for. It was just like a revolution to overthrow the government kind of revolution. Like, man, I love it. He was arrested because it was failed and was sentenced to a penal colony in Siberia. So,
Interesting.
yeah. So he was there about 3 years. At age 25, he escaped and traveled to London. So, like, just broke out, I guess. And, well, he worked outside, but, just left.
Oh, I just walked
away in the middle of the night and didn't quit walking.
Yeah.
In his 30s, he became a book dealer and opened up his first bookstore, which is the dream.
Mm-hmm.
At 37, he got married, and not long after that, he became a British subject.
Okay.
He officially made his name because he was just going by like random names at this point because he quit going by his first name, and changed his name to officially Wilfred Voynich. In 1912, he purchased a mysterious book from the Roman college, but he never really publicly announced that he had this possession for several years. He obviously gave it his name and called it the Voynich Manuscript. In the meantime, he tried to solve the code of the book by himself.
See, all this time I thought that's what it was originally called. I didn't know it was because this man
named it,
bought it, and yeah.
So he tried to solve this code. He loved books, he loved mysteries, and he tried to enlist the help of several scholars over the years, but nobody was really able to solve it. They would look at it, people would try, he would send samples, like copies of the pages to people. Nobody knew. When both he and his wife died, I believe this was the 40s. No, it was 60s, I'm sorry. When both he and his wife died in the 60s, his wife left it to a good friend of hers.
So they were pretty old.
Yeah, he died 20 years before she did. He died in the 40s, she died in the 60s.
Oh.
So she lived 20 years without him, which breaks my heart because
I
will be honest, I've told Tyler I don't know if I could live. I know this sounds sickening sweet, but I don't think I could live without him. I don't know how I would live without him. I know I would have to, and I would.
Just be lonely.
But I cannot
imagine.
I can't imagine these people who lived 20 years, 30 years, 40 years without their spouse. I understand why people get remarried. Sometimes you just need the love. But I don't like thinking about that because I hope to go out like Allie and Noah, hand in hand on a hospital bed at the same time. That's the only way we can all wish to go out.
So irrational, but yeah.
Why is it irrational?
Because very rarely do couples die at the same exact moment.
I know, but
you can dream.
I can dream.
You can dream.
I just don't want to die in a car crash at the same exact time.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that could happen.
Anyway, her friend just up and sold it to a rare book dealer, which I think is a little rude.
Her friend, after she died?
Yes, after she died, her friend just sold it to a rare book dealer. I swear, that's horrible. It's if you gave me a prized possession and then I was like, I'm just going to sell this.
I kept so much, I just don't think I could.
It felt a little mean. She sold it to a rare books dealer who couldn't find a buyer for it. Nobody wanted to buy this book, apparently. And
honestly, I think I would have just donated it.
I would too. So he ended up donating it to Yale.
Okay.
After years of not finding a seller, he just was like, I'm just going to donate
God,
it.
he held that thing for years.
Yeah, he held it for years. Nobody would buy it.
He was
Nobody
down
would buy
bad
it.
for cash.
They both were, apparently.
God.
So at this point, you have to be wondering, if you're a sane listener out there, what in the world I'm talking about. So what is this book?
You gotta Google it. It's crazy.
Why does it have a crazy history? So let's dive into this crazy world. So this book is only about 9 inches tall. It's about 6 inches wide and about 2 inches thick.
That's not what I was thinking.
So I thought it was going to be like a huge, massive book. Okay.
Looking at I think
so it's like a normal book size.
Okay. Like a
but,
journal.
Yeah, it's like a journal, maybe a little bigger. Not all the pages are still there. About 30 of them have gone missing with time. The parchment is made up of calf skin, but the current cover is not the original. It's thought to have been rebound in lamb. I think it was lamb.
Which people are probably like, that's really weird, but that's how
everything.
That's how books were made back
then. It was rebound at the Roman College. But inside the book is filled with strange writing and beautifully drawn. Well, not beautifully. I mean, some of them are pretty. Some are interesting. They're interesting. So at this point in time, if you're listening to us on YouTube or you're listening to this on your phone, make a little tab and go look up Google Images and type this in. Actually, you can go to the university. I think it was Yale University, if I'm not mistaken. It's a website, and they have a whole catalog of it, like scans, and you can click through them digitally.
Yeah, there's one because I got 2 for the flyer. Yeah,
it's really cool. The writing itself is strange and unique, and it's not like any known language in our history. It has individually about 20 to 25 unique characters, so like imagine like our letters, but their meaning is still unknown. Much of the text is written like a normal book with small margins on the side. Other parts are written around elaborate drawings and sketches. And I really don't know how to describe the letters to you other than they look like short, like quick strokes. Like if you were just making like A's and Q's and like really like, letters that just take like a second, E's, stuff like letters that are really quick to make. I don't know if I'm making sense with that.
If you're familiar with different languages, it kind of looks like Hebrew.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
That's the first thing that came to mind. I mean, not exactly. It's not, obviously, would they be able to translate it, but it looks like Hebrew to
It's just
me.
very short strokes. I should also mention that the text in this book shows no evidence that there was even a mistake in the writing. So when they've looked at each page under a microscope, there's not a single like mess up or single part where someone could like started writing a word and misspelt it and then had to start over or wrote something wrong. No even evidence of like words starting to like, how sometimes when you write on a page you can start trailing up or trailing down. Everything's written straight across.
No hesitation.
Right. So which would imply that this was something that if there was a mistake that they just immediately got a new piece of parchment, which again would feed into this being a pretty important book. Now, researchers typically divide this book up into sections when they're referring to the different parts of the book. The astronomical, why did I struggle with that? Section is filled with depictions of moons, stars, suns, and
it's interesting.
Right now our recording for the podcast kind of just spazzed out for a second. So if you're listening to the podcast version of this, I don't know what happened. It just like paused and got all spinny and started again. But it has stars, moons, suns, and there's pictures of what looks to be zodiac signs. So like Cancer, Taurus, like all of the zodiac signs we know, depictions of that. Of course, Aquarius and Capricorn are missing because those are the signs I connect with the most, and they're missing. And there's pictures of what looks to be the nude female form. So all in the book, you have like pictures of nude women, nude pregnant women, too. And these female forms are all in a circle, like not like imagine if like you had a piece of paper and no matter which way you turned it, it was the right side up, so like a continuous
they kind
drawing.
Of like angels. They look kind of cherubish.
Yeah,
some of them.
And they're holding like a string with a star attached. So it's kind of interesting. I'm gonna butcher this word too because I'm not smart. The balneological, is a section that again shows nude women, but this time they are lounging in pools and bathtubs, And all of those are connected by an elaborate system of pipes that seem to flow from one page to the next.
Those are the ones that look like cherub women.
So a lot of them are like women that are like touching the pipes, like their hands are in holding, like connecting the pipes. It was very strange, but they do seem to go from one page to the next. The pharmaceutical section and the herbal section both have detailed pictures of flowers, root systems, and other plants. These pictures look like plants that we don't have on Earth or may no longer have on Earth, depending on, I mean, the book's old, so they might have just been old species that we don't have anymore. But best guess is that they are written out to depict plants that have healing properties and how to use them. Of course, we don't know what that's what the book says, but so that, you know, that's just like a theory. But from multiple people who have looked at it, that's kind of like their overall theme is that this has to do with some kind of like health system, how to
Like a DIY guide.
Yeah. Like an almanac for your body, I guess. Now, it does kind of make sense for like the astronomical part of it, because hundreds of years ago people would use your zodiac sign to determine what medicine, like what herbal medicines to give you.
Yeah, they use zodiac signs for everything.
So because they use that and the fact that those are both in there, that is something that they think makes sense. Now,
most of my sign were crazy people. Still are.
The cosmological section has a focus on nature and has some of the most complex drawings. You see this section has several foldouts, and the largest of the foldouts covers about 6 pages. So because this foldout even exists, that's proof that this book was costly to make. This singular piece of parchment would have had to been taken from the center of the calf skin. So like if they pulled it all out, the very center of it, and because they would have to pull it from the very center of it, it would cost more, because now you're gonna have scraps of all kinds of sizes. So this entire section has, but basically like they kind of just labeled it an island, and there's like 9 of them all across the page, and they're connected by bridges, and they have castles on them. And it also shows what researchers think is a volcano in the background. So this begs the question for me, like, is this like a fantasy world that was created? Like, you know, people create fantasy worlds for books and all that kind of stuff. I wonder if this was like an early adoption of that. Like somebody just created a fantasy world, and that's what this whole thing is.
What if it's not, though?
I want to know what if it's not.
No, I'm saying, like, what if it's like an actual world?
Oh, I have that theory too. But, yeah, it could very well be something. But
I mean, it could. I mean, we have books today that are like that are like fantasy and sci-fi, and or it's like Planet Earth, but it's like Planet Earth a different way. So
different dimension, basically. I mean, there's no telling. I just think that it's crazy. And my first thought about this was the whole journey to the center of the earth. Like, you know, the story, and they have, like, go down, there's, like, all these plants and animals and stuff in the center of the earth. That's kind of my first little thing that I thought of. We're just like, what if this is, like,
the author that wrote that, like, literally believed what he wrote.
I think it's really cool.
So
be interesting to think about. Lastly, there is what they consider to be the recipe section. But it's basically just a bunch of smaller paragraphs in list form. So I don't know what it means or what it says, but this just kind of like implies that it looks like a recipe form. But it's definitely some type of list. Now, when I tell you this book is kind of incredible, like I could probably talk about it all day, but it's one of those things that seeing it does a lot more than me just telling you about it. So if you haven't looked it up already, highly recommend just stopping, going to look.
Yeah, because the pictures are really...
like, it's very interesting looking. Like, what did you think when you saw it?
It was a child. I'll be honest.
See,
It was childlike.
don't see it being a child. That's
Someone not in their right mind. That's just my honest opinion. That's just like when I first Googled it, because I knew we needed a flyer so people knew what we were talking about today, and I was like, well, let me put like a couple of the pages. So I actually went to the website that Krystle talked about. You can look at the whole thing, the whole shebang. And I was like, it definitely looks like, I shouldn't say a child, maybe a teenager, somebody younger.
So one theory about the book is that a young Leonardo da Vinci as a child drew it and did the whole thing to the book, but I'll explain to you later why that's
the
not even possible.
Are good.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody with some artistic background or something, or just naturally talented.
Not me.
But
I have no artistic talent at all. Anyway, another cool thing about this book actually is that a lot of the pictures, if you took like pictures of like each scene, like the giant circle ones, and you took pictures of each scene and you like made them go really fast, it would actually create like a little moving picture. So it's like they were drawn in like different phases of movements. Now, the paint that was actually used for this type of drawings is proof to me that the person who did this was very experienced and that there was some type of money behind the creation of the book, but that was debated. So I will be honest, I saw some research on the internet, a couple places, including Wikipedia, which is debatable and a good source, but they both said that the paint was very inexpensive and it was very cheap. But then I watched like a couple of documentaries and, like Bethany, watched the documentaries, and found more evidence that said that the paint was, not the ink, the paint was very expensive. So I don't really know. To me, it makes sense for it to be expensive. However, the ink is in different batches. Like they're all different kind of like formulas, like different pages have different formulas. But for the most part, the painting has like the same structure.
I do have to assume that it's expensive because it's held up fairly well.
Yes.
It's really old.
Yes.
It's old.
So I've also seen sources say that they think that this is part of a child's creation based on the crudeness of the drawings. And, but that doesn't make sense to me because I feel like the evidence actually suggests the opposite. Yes, these are crudely made drawings, but it's not like they're masterpieces painted on canvas. But also at the same time, I personally don't think your average 12-year-old could draw the things that were drawn. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
I mean, I was drawing some stuff like that. My mom, my grandpa. That's not everybody that's why I said it has to be somebody that's naturally gifted.
See, they didn't look like anything special drawings to me. They just looked like like somebody was just quickly sketching. It didn't look like somebody was planning out to draw something intentionally looking good. They were just sketching something.
You have to think of the time period, the material. Skin is kind of hard to draw on and paint on.
I don't know. I don't think it's a child. Absolutely not. There's no way in this planet that it's a child. So the paint that was used was made from ground minerals and other natural materials, and they were bound together with Arabic gum. So, and the way they were applied also were applied in a way that it implies that the person who painted it knew what they were doing with the materials, because one, they've lasted and are still vibrant to this day, and two, the people that I was watching on this documentary, you can watch it on Amazon, were talking about if you were to paint with these materials, it's not something that anybody can just pick up and paint with, because sometimes it paints heavy in other areas, lighter in others, and so you have to be very cognizant about how you're painting with it to get the colors you want. Mixing stuff together to get the colors you want. Also, some of the colors that were used were very, very expensive, and it makes zero sense to me that you would give a child expensive quality ingredients like that to paint a book that is also arguably very expensive because you had to get the calf like the center of the parchment from the calf and do all this work for this book that you're just going to give a child. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. And if it was, I would assume that the people who had this money would be known in history as like important people or rich people or whatever. So you feel like, why would this book be a secret? Like, who created the book if it was...
If they're not from Earth.
If they're, yeah. So, I have a theory about that too. Anyway, it's weird. Just think about that. It's weird. Not a kid. In 2009, though, small pieces of the manuscript were finally able to be kind of cut off and carbon dated, because before you used to need like a whole lot of an object to carbon date it. Now you only need like a tiny bit. So these tests determined, there's 4 of them done from different parts of the book, and they determined that the parchment was much older than they originally thought. The manuscript was likely to have been made from 1404 to 1438.
That's the time period I saw when I looked up the picture.
And would have likely taken several years to complete. It's not something that would have been like very quick to make. This already knocked a couple theories out, like just completely out the window. Roger Bacon was alive 200 years earlier than this, and he did not live to be incredibly old. He was like 73 when he died. It wasn't Leonardo da Vinci. He wasn't even born yet. It just kind of was like, okay, well, we have no idea who this is now. You just like took away our thoughts. Now, there are several theories that do hold a little bit more value today. One of them suggests that an Italian named Giovanni Fontana, I tried, may have been behind it. His drawings are pretty similar if you look up, like, just like his method of drawing and how he drew stuff. His are very, very similar, and you can see why somebody would think that. He was also known for using cryptography in his books a lot. Now, they weren't the same type of like method and the same type of writing or anything close to what the Voynich Manuscript uses, but it's obviously 2 points of connection. Now, another popular theory that also fits the timeline is that it's the manuscript written by an Italian architect named Retti. I Googled that one too, and I'm going to tell you that's not his real name. That's just what he goes by because he's that bougie. The origin of this theory started with a writer named Nick Pelling back in several of his works, and he actually used the works of Filaretti as like his source material. In a particular book called the Architectonic, I don't know, it's weird, book. It describes an ideal city, and it's shaped like an 8-sided star, the city that he dreams up. And the book describes the ideal city, how it should look. He draws heavily on magic and astrology to map out the city and how the city should look and how, houses should be built and the directions they should face. It's mapped out down to like even the schools for boys, the schools for girls, where like how homes should be, everything. His ideal city was basically his hope for how society would grow, and a lot of his works are actually what people like Da Vinci used when it came to city planning in the future. They actually used his work a lot. So that is why also some people think that his portion of what he wrote supposedly wrote in the Voynich Manuscript was just like a high-level overview of him planning everything out, and this happened to just be one section of where he expounded even more. So, like, the book was just like his journal, and it was just like a quick thing.
They can't read it.
I don't know, right? So that's another popular theory. Now, as I said before, a lot of people have tried to decipher this book. and several have claimed to be successful. Like, a lot of people have claimed to be successful. I'm not going to go through all of them because some of them were stupid. I did pick a couple stupid ones, but now the scientific community does not accept any of these as options because they can all be so heavily like debated and just dismissed. So the text isn't like anything that resembles any known language, nor do they follow any known rules that languages typically follow. Like, a lot of people, like, even if you don't know a language, if you know enough of a language that's similar, you can either piece it together or use rules from your own language to, like, imply, like...
Which is funny, because it does look like Hebrew to me.
Oh, it doesn't look... I don't know.
Like, generally to me, I was like, this looks like a child.
It also doesn't match any...
Middle East.
Yeah, it also doesn't match... I read that it doesn't match any known... like, they ran it through a computer algorithm, and it doesn't match any documented sources of, like... old languages or, like, early versions of languages. It doesn't match anything.
That's weird.
So everyone's best guess is, since it's not a language, that it's a code. So, like, it's using symbols in replacement of letters or phrases.
Which is unheard of.
Which is not unheard of.
It happened all throughout history.
People do it all the time. So that is people's best guess, is that it's a code. However, for well over 100 years, code breakers have been completely stumped at trying to figure this out. All sorts of methods have been used, including substitution ciphers and using pieces of paper with holes cut out in it and to let you read certain words. It's called a Cardian grill. They've tried everything, and no one has been able to figure out even remotely what this means. Now, the text could be a type of shorthand. They have considered that it's like a type of shorthand Latin or something like that. Or a made-up language that only the writer and the reader knew.
That feels more
like
plausible.
It to me. Like, it's something specifically, like, he was like it's his way of hiding something so no one else could read it.
But even then, people slip up and they have a key somewhere, or other people start talking about it. That's how we found out what Morse code was.
Yeah.
And...
But, I mean, if you think about it, if someone created a language all for themselves and never told anybody about it, and this was their private book, it kind of makes sense. And I did see somewhere someone brought up the idea that maybe it was a medical text that someone had. It had been their journal, but they had written in it for the sole purpose of a lot. You had to be very careful back then, because if you did stuff with medicine and it cured somebody or, fixed something, you were a witch. And so they were trying to be hyper careful about sharing anything.
More like it? Like, this was literally the only book like this.
No, like, this was their book. Like, the person who was the healer or the person who was the doctor.
Saying, but what if there's more people like this? Wouldn't there be more books out there?
I don't know.
I just feel like whoever made this had to have killed somebody.
Well, not if they didn't want anybody to know their magic.
Very rarely in the world is there a secret.
I don't know. Anyway, it does make sense, though, that it is, like, some kind of, like, personal thing that someone created, or it's a shorthand. Like, to me, that makes a lot of sense.
They put a lot of money into it, though. They wanted somebody
else
to see it.
That's why I keep going back to it being weird, because it's like, it feels like it was made for someone, because, I mean...
If it's for yourself, you're not,
if it's for yourself, yeah, you might.
Throw it in something I have around my house, just so I have it.
I mean, I guess maybe somebody would spend an obnoxious amount of money on something to write on for yourself.
Several years.
But, like, it just doesn't feel like that. It feels like something somebody because there's no mistakes in it, I feel like if it was your personal book, there wouldn't be a mistake. Like, if it was your personal book, there would be mistakes. Because, like, but if you're writing something for somebody else to read, you're going to make it as perfect as possible.
I wouldn't have cared what part of wood it was from.
So it's weird. It's very weird for me. So some of the recent claims have been claims to have translated the manuscript are pretty interesting. A professor named Stephen Bax claimed that he started a translation and was able to discover about 10 words and what they meant. Don't understand what that means. But he implied that the 10 words were about a treatise on nature.
Okay.
So basically, saving the Earth.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he died before he could finish it.
Okay.
So maybe he was killed by the universe and said, "You're not allowed to know what this means." In 2017, though, Nicholas Gibbs said that the manuscript was just a type of shorthand Latin, and that it was all about women's health.
It does have a lot of pictures of women in it.
So, and he implied that it was actually just plagiarizing another women's text or women's health text at the time. But scholars just basically said this theory was stupid and threw it in the trash due to the fact that his like main hypothesis about it was just like very shaky, and because he had pieced a bunch of other ideas together and then just made them his own.
Oh, so since it's about women,
I don't know if
it
it was.
can't be true.
I don't necessarily think it was just that. I think it was really just the fact that he just pieced it together and presented it as his own. In 2004, there was these two people. They don't deserve a name because this is a funny idea. This is just stupid to me. Suggested that the manuscript was a case of glossolalia. I can't say that word, glossolalia. And that basically the author. Okay, I want to say this is a crazy idea, but I also think this is kind of like could happen. This is kind of also my theory in like a woo-woo way. This is the theory I want to be have happened. But they claimed that the author channeled an outside force and then just like through that stream of consciousness, like whatever thing was out there, like focused in on them, and then they just wrote and drew the book. So like I want it to be like aliens who just were like, we need you to write this book. This is how your planet should live. Or like,
I feel like they would physically come.
Yeah, or like it was like this all-powerful God who was just like, here you go. This is how I want you to take care of my planet.
Yeah, but then why was nothing done with the book? They just
maybe he failed his mission. Maybe he was the one true the person who wrote this book was the one true prophet, and the Christian church said we can't let this get out.
It always comes back to the Catholic Church.
So, that's my woo-woo theory. I don't even think that's an accurate theory. That's just my woo-woo theory.
I don't know how many Catholic people have us on their do not pray for list.
Probably a lot. Our new friends that we met today were Catholic. And I felt really bad because I was like, you know how much crap I talk about?
Oh.
Your church?
But that doesn't shock me.
Look, if you're Catholic, you should talk crap about your own.
I could see them doing that, even back in the 1400s.
Well, yeah, I should probably do this. Now that I know what I need to add it to the list. There is a sect of, I should call it Christianity, that was completely wiped out by the Catholic Church. Like a whole people, a whole belief, whole everything just completely eradicated by the Catholic Church. I should do that.
Jesus.
That's a good one.
Sounds like the Holocaust almost.
Basically. Not even basically. There's nothing that could basically equate to that. It wasn't that horrible, but
that's pretty extreme.
That was one of the most extreme things that's ever happened on this planet. But it was bad.
I mean, that's also extreme.
It was bad. It was sad.
Either of the...
Very sad.
I feel like I have a theory. I'll wait, though.
I'm just telling you my theories now because I pretty much told you everything. That was my woo-woo theory, is that like some all-powerful God was just dictating how the world should be. I have zero evidence for this. I have zero evidence for this. Now,
crazy, but
it's not. No.
Wouldn't he write it in English though?
Didn't the Mormons? What's his name? Oh God,
Even
what's his name?
Even if you have an outside force talking to you, like they talk?
What's the guy who claimed to find the 2 golden plates in Mormonism?
Oh,
what's their leader?
I know what you're talking about, but I don't.
I thought that was.
Names.
I think that was in a different language. I think he translated into English, but when he originally wrote it, it was in a different language or something. I don't know. So maybe it's never. Maybe I don't know. I don't know.
It's also a crazy religion.
I don't know. My make sense theory is that it was like a fantasy book that somebody wrote for somebody else. Like it was just like a couple of rich people who had a thing where they just created a magical universe and they didn't want anybody else to read it, but like two people, there was like two best friends, and they just kind of created this magical universe that maybe that they wanted, or maybe it was this projection of how they wanted the earth to be, but they didn't want other people to read it because they don't want people to think they're crazy, and they just created this made-up language. And
Like it was lovers too.
yeah. Oh, I love that.
It has nothing but women.
I know.
I'd have to
Nude
look again.
women, pregnant women, women in the bathtub, women holding stars.
I have to look again, but I don't think I saw a man.
I don't know. And lots of plants,
A lot
like
of
really
plants.
big and pretty plants, and like showing you how to like chop up a plant and grind it up, and like different stages of like manipulating the plant.
There's one page where there's just like a giant plant going up the middle
Yeah.
of the page. It's like, is it a vine or a potted plant? I can't.
I don't remember.
But it's like all
They're crazy.
yeah.
It's a beautiful book.
It's wild.
Really crazy book. But what's your theory?
What if it is aliens? Stay with me here.
Okay.
And it's not islands. It's planets that are all connected. And it's planets of all women. And they came here and were trying to recruit women from Earth. But it got lost in translation, and they couldn't understand what they were saying, and they left. And then they just didn't talk about it because they would be crazy people.
Yeah.
So they just kept this book, and obviously they died because people didn't live very long back then.
Well,
And they just
they
kept
lived.
getting-
They lived pretty long. The home guy that I talked about lived in the freaking 1200s. Lived till he was 73.
That was amazing. Because, like, even in the 1800s, some people didn't live past 30.
Yeah, but I know that I remember from that from in history class that the only reason we know we have like a lot of people lived longer than we thought. It's just that infant mortality and mother like pregnancy
Yeah.
was like you died so often as a baby, a child, or a pregnant person that it brought down the average much
It
much
did.
lower.
It did, that's true.
So I think that's sad
But that's
too.
just my theory.
Yeah, I like.
Just because it's all women.
Yeah.
It's just all
I
women.
like my woo-woo theory. I like all the theories, I'll be honest, even the ones people are like, that's not what happened. I like my woo-woo theory the best. That
But what if it was like their planets were thriving and that's what they did and they were trying to tell us, and these are good medicines that you can make from plants, and this is how you should grow your crops, and this is how you treat your people. But
what if it was somebody from the future?
could be. So has our language changed?
Maybe.
I don't know. It's just I think it's the language. I'm not even hung up on the fact that it could be an alien. I'm hung up on the language.
It is weird, and I think it's weird that it's obviously a very distinctive writing style, because like I said, like it doesn't even make sense for like if it's grouped by like sentences or each symbol indicates a word. They're not grouped together how sentences would be like structured or how statements would be structured. Like none of that's
No, because some of them are long, some of them are short.
so everything you can
some
be
just
like
stop.
it can be like 12 characters, 15 characters all lined up, and then skip and two, and then two of them, and then like random words seem to be capitalized.
What if the decoders were right on that part? What if it's not like journal entries or like paragraphs? What if it is a list of stuff we're supposed to do?
I think especially the recipes portion of it is 100% like a list. It's listing something.
Or what if it's instructions on how to get to their planet?
That would be
Or like an invite, you know, like
like when you can understand
stand
this.
come here.
Yeah, that would be.
It's not islands, it's planets.
Can we have like a TV show? This is very Stargate for me.
I
right
do feel
now.
like somebody could make this, and I'm surprised it's never been
like a movie about it.
or something.
Dang it, I'm gonna have a dream about it in the next week. I'm just gonna like, oh no, I'll
Now that I've
remind
watched
you.
some of it, it feels very Doctor Who-ish.
Yes, it feels very Doctor Who-ish.
Now that I've watched some of it.
Did you finally get the moisturize me?
God, that was awful.
Isn't it horrible? I told my brother that you watched it, and then I immediately mentioned that, and he's like, "That's such a hyper specific Doctor Who reference, and I was like, I
It's
know.
literally the second episode.
It is, but it's like so funny to me. It's my favorite thing. I will admit, I will let you know, the first season is the roughest to me. Because I do not like Christopher Eccleston. Like, he's a good Doctor Who. But spoiler, you get a second Doctor Who in season 2.
I've already kind of picked up on that, and then what the tree lady does in the second, I kind of feel like maybe he is an alien or something along that lines. He's not from, I don't know, but yeah.
So I like David Tennant a whole lot, and you'll know. But it gets better in season 2. I'm really tempted to watch it all over again because I made Tyler watch it, and I got Tyler pretty into it. We ended at like season 12 when he like finally quit watching it with me, but
I think I'm on like episode 4 or 5. I haven't watched that much into it, but I do think it's interesting.
You will like it as you go on because you start getting like more characters in history, and my favorite part about it is like a lot of like the great mysteries of the universe, like they imply like the Doctor had something to do with it. So I think it's cute. I really like it.
I mean, that's not a bad idea if somebody came
from another planet,
or the future, and we have this whole different women rule the earth, the planet. We've gotten rid of all the men and have learned how to live without them, and they come back and see if they can maybe do it sooner. Here's this book.
Call me a feminist, but I still think women are smarter than men.
Something. I don't know. It did. I'm not gonna lie. The first time I looked at it, I was like, "This is a teenage girl." Or a young woman, because I was like, there's a lot of naked women, a lot of just women in general, and plants, and the way I don't know, it felt very feminine. I know that's very stereotypical of me. It just didn't feel like something a man drew. That's awful to say, because men can, but I don't know. That's just when I was looking it up.
Well, it's a very interesting book. May never know what it is. Maybe.
It makes me think of Futurama, the Amazonian women's. Yeah. There's just a planets out there of Amazonian women only coming to Earth for snoo. And then going back to their islands with the bridges and the volcano.
It would be so cool. I watched a video today on TikTok, and it was one of the, I think I sent it to you. You'll have to watch it. It's very space related at the beginning, but you have to watch it all the way to the very end. But basically, it like gave me an existential crisis, like all space videos do. And it was basically showing us a picture of the observable universe. And then they were like, so there's this like thing in the universe, and it's like got like all these, I'm gonna call them dancing phalanges for Bones or Friends references. And on the tip of one of those is the Milky Way galaxy. And one of the little stars in that is our star. And then there's the planet Earth, and then there's us. And that always spins me into the biggest existential crisis of all time, to realize that it's how naive I am to think that I am the only planet, that I'm on the only planet in that entire observable universe that has living human beings on it.
It's very plausible. I mean, look how old the Earth is, and look at how much we still have not discovered of our own planet. So much of the ocean.
Think about how many other successful, thriving planets could have already lived and died.
It's very, very, I don't know what the word, entitled or something for people to think that we're the only ones in Earth. We know Earth's not. Look at all the other planets we have just in our general vicinity.
I don't think
that we fully don't even understand them. I mean, we have a little bit. Like, I feel like Mars is the one we know the most about.
It blows my mind. I don't know. I love space. I wish that I lived like 800 years in the future, and I could like join like a group of like military space explorers and just live on a spaceship and travel space and just be out in space and just see if there's anything out there. Like, I literally wish I was smart enough to apply for the Mars mission.
I wish it was that sweet and simple, but I feel like a lot of people, when they go out there, it's just like all of our countries want to be the first for everything, so they're just like out there trying to be the first.
Yeah, but I think everybody on the
select few that are like that.
Well, the ISS, I feel like, is pretty. People are pretty friendly. I mean, it's a bunch of countries like living in one area. I mean, your best friend's probably a Russian, and y'all make jokes and watch TV and float around all day. Like, I don't know. I don't know. That's why I want to live, like, not now. I wish I lived, and I hope that I'm not obviously going to, like, remember this, but I hope that I am reincarnated in a couple thousand years as, like, somebody that actively explores space. Like, that would bring me no more joy than knowing that, like, a future reincarnation of myself is floating around in space, exploring and doing cool stuff in space. Just, like, living in space. Like, if we just lived in space, like a self-sustaining community, because we no longer could live on Earth. Like, there would be nothing that brought me more joy than that. Because I think it's the coolest thing.
That sounds nice. Sounds amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I just know all of my reincarnations are nothing like that.
My reincarnations before me were probably horrible people. I feel like they
like
probably
mine
were.
were all just, I don't know. I probably was in the 60s. I just have a feeling.
I think I definitely think there was a reincarnation of me in, like, the 60s, 70s. Hardcore, there was. No way that there wasn't. No absolute way that there wasn't. Just because of how I relate to some stuff sometimes, and just that sense of freedom and just change and progress and open-mindedness, and I don't know. So I feel like I was definitely part of the 60s. And then before that, strangely enough, I feel like I was part of the 40s. No, it's like a very small group of time, so I must have died early, but I definitely feel like I was in the 40s too. But who knows? Hopefully I wasn't a crappy person, and hopefully I was loved by all. Who knows? But that's all I got for everyone. My episode is a little bit long. Just a little.
That's okay. That was interesting. It was intriguing. I'm honestly surprised I've never heard of this before.
Well, now you know all about it, and you can make an obscure reference about it one day, and people are going to be like, what are you talking about? And when someone eventually solves it, you can be like, whoa, they solved it. Even if we're like 99 years old.
I would love to, but I just feel like this is one of those things that...
Better left a mystery?
I don't know if better or it just will.
I don't know.
Could it have probably solved something on our planet or helped us? Yeah, but...
So could a lot of other things. Who knows? But, okay. Well, we're going to let everyone enjoy the rest of your night. If you made it through all of this while you were working, doing anything else, thank you for listening. I hope you have a great day at work. I hope you have a great day cleaning your house or whatever, you're grocery shopping, whatever you're doing. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for listening, and tune in next week for
a missing persons
case. Yes. Thank you. I was sitting here trying to figure out what we're doing, and yes, missing persons. So tune in next time, guys. Bye.